definition of a mandate, I guess.
But the problem is that if you're the Democratic Party and you lost 49.8% to 48.3%, and you're looking at that 1.5% dip, that's an excuse for you to say, what we did really wasn't that bad. We should continue to do that. No.
What's up, y'all? Stephen A. Smith recently went on The View to discuss whether or not Donald Trump had a mandate from the people. I don't think they were prepared for what he had to say. Check it out.
Trump's only been in office for 6 weeks. Seems like 6 years, doesn't it? And he's been going around with his cronies touting his so-called landslide and blowout win. But he won the popular vote by 1.5%, one of the smallest ever. And he won the general election by less than 50%. So what kind of mandate is this really?
Well, it is a mandate, and I'm going to explain why. And I don't mind the question, but let me be very clear. I'm no supporter of Trump. I'm a supporter of truth and the facts. And here's the facts. The man won every swing state. He increased in terms of his voter turnout in his favor from the standpoint of blacks, Latinos, and young voters. He increased his numbers in that regard from 2020. 89% of the counties shifted to the right. That's a mandate. We can sit up there and play around all we want to. In 2020, Trump didn't win the popular vote. He didn't win the electoral college vote. A matter of fact, the Republicans hadn't won the popular vote, if I remember correctly, since 2004. But they did this year. So 20 years after they last won a popular vote, they won the popular vote. They won the electoral college vote. The man won every swing state. And on top of it all, 89% of the counties shifted against. I don't understand how people can look at that and say, there's no mandate. There's a mandate.
Now, we know that they didn't want to hear that, but the reality is what the reality is. It is what it is. The whole country as a whole shifted dramatically towards the right. California became more red because of the foolishness that is often espoused by the Democratic Party. This radical support for trans rights, this radical LGBT movement, how they're cramming it down our children's throats, this DEI, wokeness, diversity, calling people inherently racist simply for being non-black, for being white, causing minorities or women or people in the LGBT community that constantly look at themselves as being victimized every which way. All they've done in recent years is cause greater and greater division. Their abortion at any time. The party is evil, y'all. I don't know how I can put it any more bluntly. Now, I know everybody who doesn't, I know everyone who supports them isn't necessarily evil, but I really want people to start examining the policies of the left. The wide open border, they have lost their minds. I truly believe that what they stand for is evil, and there's no getting around it. And as unpopular on The View as what Stephen A. Smith said, the majority of the country understood that and saw that. And my personal thoughts are the only places where Kamala Harris won were places that had no voter ID or had very soft voter laws. And I think that if these states and counties and cities were examined deeply, you'll find all kinds of corruptions. That's just my personal thoughts.
Different definition of a mandate, I guess.
But the problem is that if you're the Democratic Party and you lost 49.8% to 48.3%, and you're looking at that 1.5% dip, that's an excuse for you to say, what we did really wasn't that bad. We should continue to do that.
Do you think that those...
I think she said some people didn't show up. Every party can say that. Every side can make that claim. We know that the vast majority of people don't vote. It's a small percentage. So yeah, some people may not have shown up if that's what she said, but that's a claim that can be made across the board. It's just silly. And let me just point out this one thing. Stephen A. Smith was quick to want to point out that he's not a Trump supporter. And I think he does that, and people always do that. I think it's silly to have to constantly, justify your remarks by saying, "Oh, I'm not this or I'm not that." Just make the statement. But I also know that in our current climate, people love to put titles on people and say, "Oh, he must be this if he disagrees with that." I've had people say that to me. There was a time back in the day, honestly, in early 2015, I was far from a Donald Trump supporter. But in more recent years, I still voted for him in 2016. I voted for him every year he ran. But in 2016, I did it reluctantly. But just because I was critical of him, I had people say to me, "Oh, well, who do you want? Do you want Hillary to win?" No, it had nothing to do with that. I just thought that we had better potential candidates other than Donald Trump. Doesn't mean I'm going to turn around and support somebody on the left just because I didn't agree with him. I didn't want him to be our representative. So I get why he says what he says, why people want to clarify their statements by offering, "Well, I'm not this, I'm not that." I get it, because the world we're living in, people always want to throw labels on you and always want to try to label you in a negative light.
The new strategy.
But do you think those groups, the Black voters, the Latino voters, and the others that you mentioned, are they going to regret it soon?
Possibly. I think so. I don't like what I'm seeing from Trump. I didn't like what I saw with Zelensky. I didn't like what I saw with a few things. But
Or possibly not. Honestly, the media wants you to hate everything that Donald Trump does. They want you to be mad at him. They want you to hate DOGE, even though DOGE is eliminating all kinds of fraud and waste and stupid expenditures. It's the reality of it. The left, the media narrative wants you to say that he's not producing anything, he's not saving any money. Go to the DOGE website and see what they're doing. Go follow them on X and see what they're doing. Instead of just turning on CNN or MSNBC or ABC News, go to the website and see what they're doing. You will find that they have saved billions of dollars already, and they've only been at this less than 2 months. So they are being effective, because they're pointing out the fraud in the Department of Education and USAID. If they haven't already done it, the Department of Defense. There is all kinds of corruptions. Social Security. There's all kinds of fraud and wasteful spending that needs to be handled. But again, if you look at it from the perspective of the mainstream media, they're going to make you think that people are hating everything that they're doing. But there have been poll after poll showing that Donald Trump is more popular than he's ever been, that people love what he did and is doing with the border. People are loving what DOGE is doing. Now, of course, you're going to have your detractors. There are going to be people out there who don't agree with what they're doing. But the majority of people in this country are liking what Donald Trump has been doing. There's a problem with immigration. Black folks, minority folks, people who are underprivileged are suffering because because Joe Biden and the Democratic Party wanted to take care of illegal aliens first, over and above people in our country who were suffering. FEMA was taking millions of dollars and putting up illegal immigrants when you had people in North Carolina, all down south, who were suffering after the hurricane went through. You had people in the inner cities in Chicago and in California and all across our country and in New York who were suffering and struggling, who had benefits taken away from them to take care of illegal aliens. You have women who have to deal with men invading their sports, who believe that they're women, invading their sports, taking opportunities away from them. I hear people every now and then. Come across somebody who says that they're done with the Democrat. They're done with Donald Trump, and I'm like, what did you think he was going to do? He campaigned on everything that he does. He wants to end the war in Ukraine. He believes, and it is factual, that we have been mistreated by every nation when it comes to trade and various other opportunities. We support foreign militaries around the world, and yet when it comes to trade, we get screwed over and over again. We live thousands of miles. As Trump loves to say, we have a big, beautiful ocean separating us from Russia and Ukraine. but we're sending more money than any other nation. It's insane. He wants us to be treated fairly by all of our allies and even by some of our trading partners who we may not be allies with. There's nothing insane about that. Nothing at all. What's wrong with wanting to stop the killing? What's wrong with saying, hey, other people, other nations need to step up and do the things that they say they want to do? And he's pointing that out. We're over here trillions of dollars, tens of trillions of dollars in debt. And he wants to stop all of that. And everybody talks about it, but nobody does it. Now that he and Elon are out there trying to do their thing, you have people crying and screaming. Yeah, there's going to be some cuts. Yes, some jobs are going to be lost. But he started this whole thing out by offering people 8 months in back pay, as far as federal employees, 8 months, not in back pay, but 8 months security, where they'll have health care and they'll get paid. And then after that, they're like, okay, there's going to be a cutoff. This is only for a short period of time where you have an option to take this, because if it was left to anybody else, any of the establishment politicians, the government would have only gotten bigger. They're literally trying to cut the government down. You take the Department of Education. We are one of the lowest ranking nations in the world when it comes to education. So clearly something is wrong with the Department of Education. Trump wants to give that power and authority back to the states so that each individual state can do hopefully more to benefit our kids. In the meantime, the Department of Education is growing, and this teachers union is adopting all kinds of foolishness. They're teaching kids how to be woke and how to hate each other in school instead of learning your basics, instead of preparing them for a life after school. And he wants to end that. I'm all for it.
In the end, the point, I didn't like it. But in the end, what it comes down to is this. The American people, in their eyes, it wasn't about him. They were voting against what the Democrats were throwing in their direction. I don't only talk to Cuomo. I did interview Eric Adams. I did interview Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries. I interviewed these people. I've talked to them, and I'm going to talk to some more of them too. And I'm going to say the same message. What are you doing to win? I love Wes Moore, the governor of Maryland. I love Josh Taylor of Pennsylvania, okay? I just interviewed Cuomo. I like him a lot. I want somebody to step up and recognize that man in the Oval Office, whether you like it or not, is potent. He's coming and he wins. You got to find a way to beat him. This way is not the way that the Democrats have been doing it.
Let's talk about how people are feeling about his performance, because a CNN poll this week found that 52% of people disapprove of Trump's performance in office so far. So even though he may have won the general election by less than 50%, 52% disapprove of what he's doing. We're also seeing Republican voters at
Now, of course, I'm going to question a CNN poll. These were some of the same folks that were acting like Kamala Harris actually had a chance to beat him. They are clearly biased. And you have to ask and wonder, what are their sources? Are they polling their own watchers? And if so, of course, it's going to be the majority of people who don't like what he has to say.
52% disapprove of what he's doing. We're also seeing Republican voters.
Oh, and we can also point to, there are multiple polls, Rasmussen polls. There was a Harvard poll recently. We can point to multiple polls that show that there is an overwhelming approval as far as what Trump is doing. So take that for what it's worth.
Voters at town halls opposing his executive overreach, giving Elon Musk the shadow presidency. Yet you said, quote,
oh, I'm sorry, y'all. I just had to hit on this. This whole Elon Musk shadow presidency. Elon Musk is out there. Donald Trump put together this whole crew of people, whether they are individuals who work for the administration or people who are actually part of the administration. RFK, Tulsi Gabbard, Pete Hegseth, so on and so forth. But he campaigned on bringing these people together to do their job. Elon Musk is out there up front, showing and telling everybody what he's doing. He's one billionaire. What did or does the left have? You have your George Soros's, you had all these other people on their side over the years. You have far more billionaires on the Democratic side who operate behind the scenes. So they love throwing out this shadow government. Who has a shadow government? USAID, all you have to do is look at what USAID was supporting. These were left-wing policies. And nobody knew about it because it was under the guise of USAID in some way that they provide aid around the world. And I'm not saying that they don't provide any aid, but when it comes down to any type of shadow government, my goodness, you had at one point they had Zuckerberg on their side, they had Jeff Bezos on their side. You had all of the big tech titans. They have the mainstream media. Stop with this whole shadow government thing, because if anybody has a shadow government, it's the folks on the left. These people on The View, I'm telling you, they irritate me to no end. They make me sick. They're part of the massive leftist propaganda machine. Is all they are.
Trump is closer to normal than what we're seeing on the left.
Yeah, I was talking about why he won the
How
election.
so?
When I made that statement, I was talking about that was before the election.
I see.
Right.
Okay.
So when during the election, I said in the immediate aftermath of the election, I pointed out he was voted for because they considered him closer to normal than what the Democrats were spewing. That was what I said at that particular moment in time. Now, obviously, Elon Musk is an entirely different matter altogether.
Right.
This man is not an elected official. He hasn't been
and
confirmed by the
yet-
Senate or anything, but he's got an inordinate amount of power.
Given to him by Trump.
I can understand how that could scare the living daylights out of folks and the approval ratings. Obviously, we pay attention to that. But here's the bigger question. Who on the Democratic side are the American people pointing to and saying that's the person?
We'll see.
They don't have anybody yet.
Well,
They have
we're
plenty.
6 weeks in with you know who.
National Voice.
Right.
We're 6 weeks in with you
Leader
know who.
Jeffries.
Everybody said let him do what he's doing so we can see what's going on. So, and now people are saying, well, what are you going to do as a Democrat? Well, wait a minute now. Y'all didn't want to hear what we had to say as Democrats because
Now you got these women on The View, and they are in a bubble where they are Hollywood. They get paid very well, I'm sure. And they are so far outside of the mainstream. When he talked about Donald Trump being more normal, the average person today doesn't want to hear about children being transitioned, doesn't want to hear about someone getting a position primarily or solely based on their skin color or what their gender is or what their sexual identity is. Most people want to see people get their job based on merit, based on ability. Here's it, for instance, my boys, my youngest boys are looking to join the military, but they have some medical issues that might be slowing down the process. I think they can work these things out, but they have pretty minor issues, but they're being told by their recruiter that they may have to get a waiver, and they're working on those things. But yet you can have somebody join the military who has a fake penis, who has to take tons of hormones and drugs in order to maintain their identity. That's okay. But if you got slightly elevated high blood pressure, you might have to get a waiver or something like that. Stop, y'all. That's utterly ridiculous. And God forbid we start digging into the mental problems that are largely associated with the trans movement. Like, come on. Irrational. That's what I'm talking about. The things that the left has supported in recent years are completely irrational. Abolish the police, defund the police, wide open borders, transitioning children. People are fed up with it. But the only way the left can survive is if they have this big media machine behind them. Clowns like these women on The View who are clueless when it comes to the real down-to-earth everyday person. And they have their audience members and people following them. And I really want people just to really start putting these things together. When you say you're going to a voting booth and saying you're supporting the left, this is what you're getting. Everything I've just mentioned, all of these silly policies, they come with the territory, and there's no getting around it. You can deny it. You can act like you don't like it, but it is what it is. You're complicit in the foolishness, period. These people hate our country. They are as racist as you come. They hate simple male and female distinctions. They hate the core family. They hate Christian values. This is what you get from the left. Literally, at the heart of it all is a Marxist, socialist, communistic view that wants to destroy our country from within. There's no getting around it. And they're struggling. And I mean, and how many people are really asking, honestly, well, what do you have to offer on the left? I mean, we may ask that as a rhetorical question, but I really don't care. I think that what they stand for is horrible. There's nothing good that comes from it. But those are just my thoughts. What do you think? Comment down below. If you appreciate content like this, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. And before you go, make sure you check out this video right here where I break down another conversation by Stephen A.